A Christmas horror anthology that involves Santa fighting Krampus. What else do you need? Let's do it. Christmas Horror Story consists of four different horror anthologies. They're all being told simultaneously throughout the movie, but I'm going to tell them one by one. As all four stories are being told, we keep switching back to DJ Dan, who is a radio DJ. As the night goes on, he just keeps drinking more and more, and he still keeps playing his music, but he also starts warning about a disturbance at the local mall. He tells all his listeners that police are encouraging that they stay away from the mall. In the first story, we meet these three teenagers, Molly, Dylan, and Ben. They decide that they want to break into their school during winter break because a year prior, this terrible tragedy happened where these two students were found killed. Now, their friend Caprice was also supposed to go with them, but it turns out she has to go out of town with her family, and their story is going to be another anthology. The three of them get in the school and they manage to make their way to the basement. They're doing their investigation when all of a sudden they get locked in. So they're all trying to find a way out when Molly comes across this bloody apparition of this woman. And after she sees this, she becomes possessed. So she finds Dylan and she tries to seduce him, and he pushes her off of him because he's like, no, I have a girlfriend, we can't do this. So Molly gets angry and offs him. She then finds Ben and successfully attempts to seduce him, and the two of them do it. And once they're done, the spirit possessing her leaves her body and leaves her just completely confused as to what the fuck just happened. So she's freaking out, and they continue to see these apparitions of these nuns and these girls. And we know this school used to be a convent, and eventually Molly finds out that the spirit that possessed her was a teenage girl named Grace. And Grace died after the nuns in the convent forced her to go through an operation to get rid of her baby. And this ghost is now looking for someone to impregnate her to have a baby. So that's why she possessed Molly to sleep with Ben. And that also accounts for the two deaths of these boys the year prior, because they refused like Dylan refused. So Ben grabs a weapon to arm himself, which the ghost sees as a threat, and she offs him. The ghost then looks at Molly, and it's implied that Molly just became pregnant from Ben, and the ghost unlocks the door and lets her leave. The next story is about this family, the parents, Scott and Kim, and their son, Will. So it's revealed to us that Scott is a police officer, and he actually worked on the murder case from the school the year prior. And because of the trauma of this case, he is actually on leave from the force. So it's Christmas time, and they want to go get a tree, and Scott takes them into this area of the woods that Kim is reluctant to go into, and it's owned by this guy named Big Earl. And as they're in the woods, Will wanders off and gets lost. Eventually, they find him hiding inside of this tree, and they relax, they think all is well, and they go home. However, when they get home, they realize that their son is not their son. He refuses to speak any words, and at one point he stabbed Scott in the hand with a fork. He weirdly tries to seduce his own mother. And eventually Kim gets a call from Big Earl, who is like, your son's different, isn't he? And he tells Kim, your son is now a changeling. You need to bring him back to the woods. Kim thinks this is bullshit, so she hangs up on him. But then little Will, not Will, offs Scott. So Kim's like, okay, we're going back to the woods, bitch. So Kim brings a gun with her, and they encounter Big Earl, who tries to say, I can't help you find your son because it's up to the changelings. They do their own thing. I don't know where he is. And basically, in the chaos, Kim shoots Big Earl. And it turns out he was keeping the changelings hidden in the grove. So he was lying. He knew where he was. So killing Big Earl freed the changelings, and that allowed the changeling to go back to his home and Will to go back to his home. In the next story, we follow Caprice, who again we know is friends with the three from the first story. And she, along with her younger brother Duncan and their parents, are visiting their Aunt Etta. Etta's caretaker is kind of really weird, and he sees Duncan holding this Krampus statue and gets mad at him. He tells him to be careful with it, and Duncan, being a little brat, drops it and breaks it on purpose. So Aunt Etta is pretty much like, fuck you guys, and tells them to leave. But as they're on the way home, they get in a car accident, which forces them to get out and start walking on foot. But they very soon realize that something is following them, and all of a sudden, Duncan is pulled by an unseen force and just disappears into the fucking abyss. Priest and her parents attempt to hide in a church and repent for their sins because at this point they realize that it's Krampus coming for them because they've acted badly. Eventually Krampus kills the mom and dad, and then it's just Caprice left. So Caprice manages to make her way back to Aunt Etta's house, where she comes face to face with Krampus. A fight ensues, but Caprice manages to off Krampus, and as he's dying, he transforms into the fucking caretaker. And we learn that he transformed into Krampus because of his anger over the family's actions. And Aunt Etta knew that this was going to happen. So when Caprice finds out that Aunt Etta knew this was going to happen, her anger causes her to turn into Krampus, and she kills Aunt Etta. The final story is about Santa, so it's going to be happy, right? Wrong. So Santa is busily preparing for Christmas as he does every year when all of a sudden he notices that his elves are starting to act weird. They start saying really rude, inappropriate things, and then they just straight up turn violent. And it turns out they're getting infected with this rage zombie virus and they all start attacking Santa. So he manages to fight them off and starts killing them one by one. And he even has to kill his own wife, Mrs. Claus, when she turns into a zombie. And after he kills all the elves, he comes face to face with Krampus for the final battle. Why is Krampus kinda... So this kick-ass fight happens between the two of them and Santa manages to corner Krampus, and as he's about to go deliver the final killing blow, he hears Krampus saying, "Norman, please." And he snaps out of it. And it turns out that he is not actually Santa. Norman is a mall Santa, who is also the weather guy on Dan's radio show, by the way. And he had a psychotic break that caused him to believe that all the mall goers were zombies that were attacking him, and he's been killing them one by one. So when DJ Dan was talking about the disturbance at the local mall, that was it. The police arrive just as Norman is about to kill Krampus, aka the mall's manager, and they shoot Norman dead, and the movie ends.